Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be a bit of an update on the bioactive enclosures. Now, for you guys that haven't seen my videos before, I have 3 green tree pythons and now I have 3 bioactive enclosures. Now, 2 of those bioactive enclosures are being established and getting ready to house the green tree pythons. The third one on the left hand side is set up with green tree frogs. If you want to know specifically, they're set up with dainty green tree frogs or graceful green tree frogs. Now, all these bioactive enclosures have pretty stock standard things inside them, being plants, soil, a drainage layer, and a misting system. Now, do you need all these things to have a bioactive enclosure? Not at all, no. Of course, the plants, the drainage layer, and soil, you need that to have a bioactive enclosure, but the misting system is not needed whatsoever. You can see the misting system at the top of the enclosures. That is the MistKeen 5.0 for those who are curious. Now, that system is pretty expensive and it's a pretty advanced system to have on your enclosures. Now, I intend on getting quite a few more enclosures and that's why I purchased it. For a beginner, you can simply have a spray bottle that you have to spray your enclosure 2 or 3 times a day, which is pretty easy to do. Once in the morning, once when you maybe get home from work or school, and once just before you go to bed. Pretty simple. Now, these enclosures are set to mist 4 times a day for about 10 to 15 seconds each, which is pretty standard. These do produce a very fine mist, so although it's 4 times a day, they're not getting that much water content in them. It's just keeping everything a little bit on the moist side, keeping everything hydrated, whether it be the frogs or snakes. Now, the 2 enclosures on the right hand side don't have the snakes in there. I have the snakes to the right hand side in those tubs. Now, they're just growing up in those tubs and are not currently ready to be put in those enclosures. Now, the main thing I wanted to discuss in this video today is fairly easy concept of what you need to set up a bioactive enclosure. I've already done a video going a little bit more in depth, but I thought I'd give you guys an update of how things are going and what they're looking like. The bioactive enclosures are pretty easy to look after and they're fairly self-maintaining. Now, if you've done it right and have a drainage layer, a soil layer, and of course all your plants, anything that does die just will get reabsorbed into the soil and be put as nutrients and later utilized by the plants that you have in there. Now, plants that you put in there do count, I guess, do harbor a pretty big impact in terms of what plants you have. Now, the plants that you want to do, I do shaded or nursery plants in the sense that they're grown in a shade house, a little bit of a high humidity, and aren't too heavily reliant on sunlight. Now, I do have 2 globes, 1 LED and 1 fluorescent tube in those hoods that I have currently over the tanks, and they do produce quite a bit of light, but a lot of these plants are fairly low light. We've got a lot of Spanish moss, bromeliads, peperomias, phoetonias, Chinese evergreen, things like that that don't need air plants, that don't need a lot of light, don't necessarily need a heap of water, but are not only very nice to look at, they have a lot of color, a lot of foliage to the tanks, but they're also easy to look after. And as you can see, these tanks, they're pretty heavily stocked. I will take the phone off the tripod and go a little bit more in depth and show you those tanks. I'll actually do that now, make it a little bit easier. Take it off. Now, as we go in, you can see these tanks now pretty heavily planted for a lot of these. And like I said, this one does house the green tree frogs. You can see a few of them at the back and also a few of them on the side here. Got 8 dainty tree frogs or graceful tree frogs in here. So they're all juveniles at the moment, but you can see heavily planted, got some really interesting colors. Same with this one. These are for the green tree pythons, hence the perches and sticks. Excuse the water bowls, because these are just almost set up to just run. I haven't really been cleaning, or if I'm doing maintenance, water and dirt's just been falling in there. They don't house any live animals, so I don't need to worry about it at the moment. So you can see there in the back, and then this one here. This one doesn't have any perches because I'm currently doing a bit of modifications to the perches and seeing if I can make them a little bit easier to remove in and out. But you can see, really, really cool. Very, very simple. I honestly, once I set these up, I haven't touched them, haven't trimmed the plants, haven't done anything. That's been about a 5-month period now. And it hasn't led to any issues, haven't had any mold issues. I do add, of course, springtails and isopods to the soil, which does help with mold and decaying matter. Now, if you don't have them, this one currently does not have any isopods or springtails because it was only set up within the last 3 weeks. And I do currently, I'm currently in the process of ordering more because my cultures, I actually put both of my cultures in there and I didn't keep any for myself. Pretty dumb. But you can see this is just a general overview of bioactive enclosures and what you can achieve. Now, I've got more of a, like I said, a frog pond or a frog terrarium setup. So it's got the waterfall, got a few more in-depth things. And there you got the snake enclosures. So they've got the heat globes over the top and a little bit more, I guess a little bit more monitoring in a sense. You got to worry about temperature, whereas the frogs, because they're going to be next to a heat source, don't have to worry about the temperature, don't have to worry about necessarily humidity because I've got a lot of the water in there. With the snakes, that water bowl, although it does add quite a bit of humidity to it, doesn't do enough, so I've got to do the misting and stuff like that. So that's why I have that. So, but what I'd like for you guys to do is, if you have any comments or questions, leave them in there. Also, I'd really like to hear some input on what you guys want to see. Now, I mean, it takes a few minutes to go in the comment section and say, I want to see this, I want to see handling green tree pythons, I want to see handling the frogs, or how to set up the frog tank and stuff like that. So it's pretty simple. That's all I'm after, and we'll be looking forward to hearing you guys' input. See you in the next video.